there, welcome to the channel or welcome back. I'm Angela and this video is the next installment in my Perfect Cargo Pants series. If you've been hanging out with me this year, then you likely know what that means. If you're new, there's a whole playlist that has led us up to this point in time, but I will get you caught up here in just a second. Stay tuned. So just a little bit of a recap because it has been a while since the previous episode of this series. What my goal was to make my own perfect pair of cargo pants from scratch. I'm not a pattern drafter at all. So what I've been doing up till now is taking my three favorite pair of ready-made store-bought cargo pants and use that as a starting point to make a template out of. They're the most comfortable ones, the ones that I reach for the most often to wear. So I did do that. I cut them apart and made pattern pieces out of my tissue paper, made a muslin, and that is kind of where I left off with this. The muslin fit pretty well. It did need a little bit of adjustment, so I'm going to show you how I'm adjusting that today. And then the next steps are to figure out where all the pocket placements are going to go. So let's jump in. So we're over here at my work table now, and this is the muslin that I had made up. So what I've decided to do was just to add some width onto the side seams here down to this point. So here's the waist, and then I guess that's about, I don't know, 18 inches down. From there below, it was fine. So I'm not going to add any width onto that. And what that means is on my pattern pieces here, I had gone ahead and laid out the cut apart pants here just to kind of refresh myself where I was. So what I am going to do is to take some of my tissue paper scraps here, and this is my back piece here, the back legs. I'm just going to put this little scrap piece underneath and tape it on. Grab my tape here. And it doesn't have to be taped like the whole length, just enough to keep the pieces together. And I think when all is said and done and I've gotten this pattern perfected, I'm probably going to go ahead and redraw it onto a single sheet of tissue paper just so it's a little bit cleaner and make any notes on that. What I need to do though is to get a more accurate measurement of where I had pinned that to start widening it. Grab my tape measure. This piece that I'm working with does not include the waistband, so I have to remember to measure starting where the actual piece starts and not include the waistband on that measurement. Hope that made sense. And also to add on 5/8 inch seam allowance up here to account for that. So it looks like it's at about 15 inches down from the top of this piece here. I'm not sure if you guys can see what I'm working on. I'm just going to adjust the camera there. So starting at the top of this piece here, I will measure down 15 inches. I'm going to make a mark. And that is where I am going to start enlarging this piece here. And I think I'm just wanting an inch on each side, so I'll just add a 1/2 inch to the front and a 1/2 inch to the back to get my total of 1 inch. And what I am going to grab is my curved ruler. So I'm going to grab that and I'll be right back. And I'm going to measure at the top of this piece, the top edge, a 1/2 inch. And and take my ruler and get that blended in as best as I can so that it stops at my 15-inch mark here. I think that should do it. They weren't uncomfortably tight, but given that they are going to be meant for active, the walking, hiking, what have you, working outside, I do want them to be a little comfortable and not too restrictively tight. Let's take a look at that. So I drew the line. I hope that's showing up on the camera. And I'm hoping that how it tapers off here, that I don't need more space there. I hope that makes sense. I feel like it should be okay because they were tightest up here in the rear end area and the upper thigh. So I'm going to go with that. And then, actually, I'm not going to go with that. I am going to enlarge it a little bit more because once I will be making a second muslin of these once I get it all adjusted. And then if I've added too much, I can always take some off. So there's that. I'd rather be safe than sorry and take the time now to fiddle with it, get it just right, and then I'll know I have a good pattern that I can work off of for however many times I want to make these pants. So I did end up adding probably more than an inch up here towards the top, but that may not be a bad thing. I'm going to do the same thing on, so this was the back, and I'm going to grab the front pattern piece and do the same thing there. Just going to measure 15 inches down. Pull this one a little closer so I can use it as a guide to do the same distance on the front here. I wish this was clear so I could see through it, although I do love a metal ruler. It's nice. The best way is probably going to be to measure along the top here. And that is at 1 3/8. Okay. All right, let's take a look at that. I feel like it didn't come out quite. So I should have measured different points along this first adjustment just to make sure that I was sticking to the same all the way down, and I did not. That is on me. No worries. I can do that now. Should have done it to begin with. Okay. Put another piece of tape on here. All right, let's try this again. All right, that's much closer. And I feel like it's probably close enough. So we'll see. I'll know when I make up the second muslin. So I'm going to take you over to this gray pair here and kind of show you what the next steps are going to be. I feel like I'm done as far as fitting. As long as I've added enough seam allowance onto the front and back, then fitting should be good. And now we're ready to start working on adding in the pockets and other features. So I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer. So this is one of the 3 pairs that I was trying to use as a model. And it's a little bit different than most of the cargo pants that I've worn. And what I would like to do is to incorporate a couple of features from this. If you can see this seam here, so that's towards the bottom of the leg and it's on each side, front and back. It's just a separate little piece that I guess is a design feature. And the way that they have that added into the top portion of the leg here is that there is another seam from that point going all the way up to the waistband. And I really, really like that this kind of 3-part construction here. And I'm definitely going to add this into my perfect pair. So that's what I'm going to work on next. And then we'll talk more about pockets here in a little bit. I thought baby steps. So this is like the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to grab my tape measure and measure down from the waist to where this hits there. Might be easier to do if they were laying flat. So I'm going to take these over to the cutting table and I'll flip you around. Okay, so here we are over here again. I apologize for all the camera motion. And again, this doesn't have to be exactly there as long as it's close enough. There's nothing hinging on this being in the right place. So if it's a little like ½ inch or inch even lower or higher on the perfect pair than it is on this, it's not going to be that big of a deal. All right, so I've got 20 3/8 down from where the waistband meets the pants. So I'm going to go with that. Move these off to the side. But, thinking about it, you guys are really working through this process with me. This is a bunch of figuring it out as I go. That's kind of what this whole project has been from the beginning, which is why it's taken a little while and why I'm having to do this in little bite-sized chunks. So it was 20 3/8 at this point here. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be 20 3/8 from any other point along the waistband, if that makes sense. So I'm going to measure in from center front, and we're at 3 3/4. Not sure if I'm going to be remembering all these measurements, so I'm going to write them down. So we had, was it 20 and a half length by 3 3/4 from center. Okay, from center front. And again, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. So let us measure down. A little lower there. Okay, so that is the back, and what I need is the front. So here's where I need to start measuring, not at the edge of the pattern piece because that's the cut edge, but 5/8 inch in to allow for the seam allowance. So 3 3/4 would put us right there. And 20 and a half inches down would put us right there. And earlier today off camera, I did go ahead and measure that same placement going from the center where the crotch point is all the way down and made a mark. So this will be kind of an interesting, I think I need to add 5/8 inch. So this will be kind of an interesting corroboration, if you will. I don't know if there's a better word, to see if they meet up here. The mark I made earlier going from the crotch point and then from the center front of the pants leg here. And it's looking at first glance that they are going to pretty much meet up in line. So here's my 2 points there. I hope all this is making sense. It's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of hard to explain because I'm just thinking through my thought process, like speaking aloud my thought process, and I don't have it down pat yet. So you guys are just being the guinea pigs along with me, and I appreciate you hanging out with me. So they pretty much line up, but just to make sure, I'll measure up from the bottom leg, which is a straight cut. So yeah, that's what I'll do there. Although the curved edge of the leg here will throw my measurements off. So best way to do this, I'm going to go grab another ruler, and we will do, that's my 6 by 24 quilting ruler. I'll be back. And this one is clear, so that makes it really nice. I'm going to line it up straight across the bottom edge of the pants and see what we've got here and see if those 2 marks line up. So this is the mark here. So they don't exactly line up, which is fine, but now's my chance to make them line up. So what I'm going to do is to slide my quilting ruler down a little bit, get it lined up. And while I am doing this, I'm going to go ahead and mark the grain line on this. I didn't do that to start with, and I should have, but I know that the bottom edge of the leg is right, so I'll just use that as the basis to mark a grain line. So I'm actually quite a ways off, and I don't know if that's concerning or not. This will be another reason why I'll be making a second muslin of these, along with all these fancy cuts in the 3-piece section, just to make sure that it all is level, even and level once I do the final make. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is just to lengthen this line all the way across. So now I've got my line where the upper and lower leg will separate. And when I cut this apart and make this 2 different pattern pieces, I'll just have to remember to add the 5/8 inch seam allowance on right there. And the mark that I used was that first mark that I made earlier today, going from the center crotch point. So I'm just going to use that as my benchmark. And I did the same thing earlier to the back piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and use that mark and not worry about measuring down from the waistband, which would be very easy to skew thinking about it. As I've been working on this project, I have definitely a new appreciation for designers and pattern designers, clothing designers. You see what all goes into it. So we'll see if these the lines on the front and the back match up when I go ahead and make my second muslin. But before that, what I needed to do was to grab the front again. And I really need to figure out this whole dividing the upper part of the leg into the left and right, like splitting it in 2. So that is where, let's see, so I did make that. That's where I think I'll be able to use that mark on the waistband. And now I have a straight edge here to measure up against. So that is what I'm going to do. This whole thing is a learning process, and I have made cargo pants before, 2 pairs, and one of them I'll show you here, and I've shown it on the channel before, but they were just pretty much straight cargo pants. I think trying to split this whole front piece into 3 sections is adding on complexity, but it's really, really important to me because what I want, the whole reason why I'm doing this splitting apart, is because I want this pocket here that's kind of it's built in line with this section of where the upper kind of splits in half. This pocket, this whole piece is built into that. It's not just added on as a patch pocket. So that kind of necessitates me having to do the splitting up of the front leg here. I think it'll be okay. It's just adding a layer of complexity. And then also I really like this front pocket at the top here, and that one also is built in line. It's not assembled like a regular, front side pocket is right there. It's all kind of built into this little column here. So that's what I'm trying to emulate with this. We'll see how I do. But for now, I need to make this dividing line here on the upper leg. And I realized I did not do my grain line, but actually I won't need, yeah, I'm still going to need a grain line. So I'm going to do that. Okay. Grain line for the lower leg. And grain lines for each piece of the upper leg. All right, I'm going to do the grain line on the back piece now. And this might be where we call it a day. I had wanted to get a lot more done in this session as far as marking pocket placements of all the other pockets. But this has taken a little longer than I thought. And I'm really trying to keep these segments short and sweet so as not to make your guys' eyeballs bulge out of your heads trying to keep up with this crazy nonsense. I'm not happy with the grain line here because I feel like it would serve me better if it was on this larger portion going all the way up to the waistline or close to. So I'm just going to make another parallel line with that first one. Like I mentioned, I'll end up redrawing these pattern pieces with the good markings once I get them perfected or as close to perfect as I can. So for now, I'm going to leave it here. The next time that we meet about this project, what I'm going to have worked out for us is the section of the front leg that is on the outside here that goes along. Let me lay this out. This section here that has all the pockets and all that business there. I'm going to have to actually turn these inside out and look and see how that's constructed. I don't think it'll be too difficult. I think it's just a matter of, figuring it out. So that's where we'll start up next segment. So we're going to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. And I do apologize if this is kind of, it seems a little bit like I'm muddling my way through this because I am kind of muddling my way through this, just figuring everything out as I go. So having you guys along with me on this very long, extended journey with these pants has been so nice and helpful. I'm so glad that you're hanging out with me. I hope that you'll tune back in this weekend. I've got something pretty exciting to share with you regarding the channel. And until then, bye.